And that's the picture you sent to your mom
Yes, it is.
on March 23rd, 2013.
Yes, it was from a previous fight.
Okay. All right. Now, did you have any other altercations in March 2013 with Mr. Depp?
Yes, we had a couple of these fights in Orange that were around this time, one of which I started to tell you about the painting.
You know, and I know I've interrupted you now twice on that, but I realize the jury doesn't. Can you tell them what you mean by orange, at Orange?
Sorry, Orange was my apartment that I kept in Los Angeles at the time.
And it was an apartment. What type of an apartment?
I rented the top of a duplex. So it was a house with the landlord living on the bottom floor. I rented the top floor.
Okay, thank you. Now, please continue with the painting. I'm sorry.
It seemed like nothing I could say to Johnny would convince him. He wanted me to remove the painting. And he wanted me to admit to this affair that I wasn't having. And I didn't want to admit to it because it's not true. So I held out, and he just drank more and did more cocaine. And I woke up the next morning, I think it was on the 22nd or the 23rd. I woke up in the morning and the breakfast table was like cocaine and booze. And I realized that I wasn't going to be able to talk our situation down. I wasn't going to be able to talk him out of it. And he was just so convinced that I was fighting with him or at the reason that he wouldn't leave the house. And he had something to go film that was important. And there were important people waiting for him. And I remember people were reaching out, his assistants, his manager sister, you know, everyone was wondering where he was. And I kept feeling embarrassed and unable to move this person out of my house. I couldn't calm him down. I couldn't change. He was just so intent on me admitting the details of this affair that I wasn't having. And me pointing out that the cocaine wasn't making his situation any better made me the bad cop. Then I'm the nag. So eventually I called my sister. He had a kind of a buddy-buddy relationship with her at the time. And at the time, she occasionally did cocaine. I didn't, but she did. So I was like, hey, come take over. You know, maybe you can buddy him and talk him into leaving the house, just getting out of the house. And she did. I remember his assistants trying to get him out. Like eventually in the evening, I think early evening, he finally agrees to leave, but I can't tell our relationship status. I can't tell if he still is convinced of these things or if he's just going to sleep it off and it's going to go back to normal sobriety, sorry kind of phase. And he was still upset, but like seemingly calming down. So I agreed to go with him. He wanted me to go to the shoot. I had plans, so I kind of reluctantly agreed, but didn't want to set anything off. I didn't want to engage anymore. I didn't want to do anything that could be perceived as antagonizing him or engaging more. So I went with him. We grabbed the dogs, we get in the car, we're on the way there. We're headed up Sweetzer's the street. It's a major street that leads up to Johnny's houses. He effectively owns the end of the street. It's like a cul-de-sac. So we're nowhere near his home, but we were driving up this street, and he has the window down, he's smoking. It wasn't all the way down, but you know, he's constantly smoking, and at some point he starts howling out of the window and then grabs two small dogs. Well, one was Johnny's dog and one was my dog, but he grabs, if I remember correctly, Boo, his dog, slightly chunkier teacup Yorkie, and he grabs this teacup Yorkie and holds Boo out of the window of the moving car. And he's howling like an animal while holding the dog out of the window. And everyone in the car, I'll never forget it, everyone just froze. No one did anything. And I too was like torn as to what I should do, because I didn't want to do anything to cause him to react, drop the dog. You know, it was just this eerie moment where he's howling and holding this animal outside of the car window. And more than that weird memory is more than that weird memory, I have a memory of everyone just kind of not really reacting to him. Like no one really kind of did anything. I eventually kind of pulled his arms gently back into the vehicle and kind of got the dog back on the seat, and we continued driving, but no one reacted. It just kind of avoided dealing with it. We get to the place, the house where he was filming this thing that he was late for, I suppose, for the day. And we walk in. Meanwhile, I've been bombarded by text messages and calls and conversations with everyone seemingly so stressed. I understood everyone was stressed. They seemed stressed to me about the tardiness. Where is he? Let's get him there, so we get him there. And no one reacts when we get in. I mean, we walk into this house where everyone was waiting for him, and everyone smiles and says, hey, boss.
Objection, hearsay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Let's, Michelle, can we pull up 167A?
Your Honor, I don't think it's this version of the photograph that's been admitted, so it's a
different version,
it's a
same
different-
photograph, but a little different, is that what we're?
It's not the same photograph.
Okay, not the same
right, well
photograph, then we'll go with it. Then
Okay.
what number is it?
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
Please tell the jury what it is.
It's a picture I took of my breakfast table that morning.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 167A.
167A, any objection?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Sure.
Amber, you said that you took this that morning, is that
Yes.
correct? Could you tell the jury what the box is that has the property with the skull bones, property of JD?
That's Johnny's drug box. I've seen it used for pills, but at the time it was bags of Coke, like dime bags of Coke.
Okay. And what are these white lines on the table to the left of that box?
That is cocaine.
Okay. And do you know what is in these two glasses that have kind of a gold colored liquor?
Yes, they're different, actually. It's confusing. They're different. Different liquids. The one in the back in the larger glass is, I believe at the time I was doing these tabs. They're Barocca, that's what they're called. They're little tablets. And anyway, I remember at the time that's what I was putting in my water, because I had just come back from France where they sell them. And then the brown liquid in the shot glass is Johnny's liquor. I don't know what it's called, but we kept it in the freezer. At the time, it was at that time, March 2013, I hadn't, I still didn't have the, hard line. I won't even keep that, in my freezer sort of attitude or posture with him. I wasn't that bold at the time, I didn't like it, but I didn't have that strength. I kind of, at that time, I think, was doing things like trying to pour it out when I could.
So what is the bag, the brown bag on the left side? What is that?
That's a DOP kit. It's his prescriptions and cigarette, tobacco, weed, things like that.
Okay, and then above it there appears to be a CD of some sort, DVD, something. Do you recognize that?
Yes, it's the single, I believe is what it's called, the single he was making at the time. I think that's the song that they were filming a video for, if I'm correct.
Okay. All right. Now, did you end up sending a copy of this picture to Rocky Pennington that day?
I did. I sent it to my best friend at the time, and was like, look at my morning.
Objection, hearsay.
Okay, you can't say what you said, but you sent it to your friend, correct?
I
Let's
sent
go
it
to
to my friend.
167, please. And is that the email in which you sent this picture to Rocky Pennington on 3/22?
Yes.
2013? Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of the picture with the redaction of the message on it, with the top with identifier redactions, and we take out the rest of it. Is this the text message, the email that you sent to Rocky with this picture?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to take you to Hicksville. Let's tell the jury about Hicksville, May 2013. Can you tell the jury what transpired at Hicksville?
It's a fancy trailer park, like a little hotel in the middle of nowhere, set up with these little trailers, and we had made a plan to go there with friends, and we were going to do, like laffy, as we said, laffy drugs, like mushrooms, eat mushrooms, sit by a campfire. There's really not a whole lot else to do out there. It's like a getaway. We had made this plan, and it was going fine. It was like a, kind of like a party out in the desert, with a few friends and campfire and music. And I don't know somebody brought MDMA. It was being passed around, and somebody who took it kind of was starting to feel the effects of it, I guess is the best way to describe. She kind of reacted in this way where when the MDMA hit her, she kind of, we were sitting around a campfire, all of us, and she kind of just leaned into me and put her, head on my shoulder and kind of grabbed my arm. I took it, to be the effects of the drug. I think I had eaten a mushroom cap, but was not feeling anything at the time. I don't remember feeling anything because the night just kind of changed pretty dramatically before I really felt anything of the effects of that. But that was the environment we were in, and as soon as she kind of did this thing where she leaned into me, Johnny gets really activated. He gets really upset, and he starts. Well, at first she thought he was kidding too. She thought he was kind of making a joke. I think we all did. Everyone kind of responded at first, like it was a joke. But he was like, "Hey man, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing?" And she kind of giggled and kind of leaned into me more, and I knew in my body just instantly that it wasn't a joke, but she didn't. So she's kind of still attached to my arm when he says it again to her louder. He says, "Hey man, you think you're touching my fucking girl? You think you're touching my fucking girl? That's my fucking girl." And he gets louder and louder, and she kind of did this thing, half understanding what was going on. I think she kind of started to cry at this point, but she kind of threw up her hands, and Johnny grabbed her wrist and kind of twisted it and pulled her into him and said, "Do you know how many pounds of pressure it takes to break a human wrist? Huh?" And he kind of held her, and she just looked frozen. And she's crying, and she was just denying understanding what was going on. I stepped in. I kind of take Johnny's arm around, kind of take Johnny's hand, and kind of we start communicating. I don't remember if he immediately was accusing me or if it was sometime after. I wish I remembered, but we agreed that we'd go and talk about it in the trailer. So we walked to the trailer, and when we're in the trailer, Johnny by the time we get into the trailer, Johnny tells me that I had been instigating the, and asking for this, and that I had invited it, and that I hadn't been honest with him about my relationship with this woman. And I didn't really know her that well. I mean, I actually don't know her at all, but I had met her. And I remember in the trailer, he's accusing me of lying about it, and that I had something with her. I'm trying to diffuse that. I'm trying to calm him down. And he just turned all that, it seemed like he turned all that rage onto the trailer itself. And he just started smashing things. He picked up something on the table and threw it right into the glass cabinet. He hit with his hand a wall sconce. He cleared the tabletop on the little fold down like kitchen dining room area in this trailer. I mean, it's a trailer, so there's only so much you can do. And he's screaming at me, just screaming at me. And I eventually go back into the bedroom area. He comes into the bedroom area. We had what I can only describe as it sounded like nonsense from him. It wasn't making sense. And I realized that he's just probably really high, because it wasn't making sense anymore. It wasn't like a direct accusation. He wasn't hearing me when I was saying I wasn't involved, wasn't cheating on him. I wasn't secretly trying to engage this woman in some sort of sexual affair. And then it became clear to me he was like looking for something. He cleared things off the bed. I went into the bathroom, and as I come out, he asked me where it is and how long I've been hiding it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he says, you know what I'm fucking talking about. You know what I'm fucking talking about. Be honest with me. Where are you hiding it? And he kind of like makes to look into the bathroom. And I gestured to the bathroom, which was to my right. I kind of like gestured to him, and I said, like, what am I hiding, and where am I gonna hide it? And we're standing in this little hallway area outside of the bathroom, and he starts, what it feels like patting me down, or saying he's patting me down. I can't recall, but he ripped my dress, the strap top part of my dress. I had just dyed this thing myself pink, and it's just one of those things. I was like, that's I just finished that dress. And he's like grabbing my breasts, he's touching my thighs, he rips my underwear off, and then he proceeds to do a cavity search. He said he was looking for his drugs, his cocaine, his coke. I was wondering how somebody who didn't do cocaine and was against it, that was in and of itself causing problems in our relationship. How could why would I hide his drugs from, like he was insinuating that I was doing it or something? It made no sense. And he was telling me we're gonna conduct a cavity search, shall we? Like, just shoved his fingers inside me. And I just stood there staring at the stupid light. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there. While he did that, he just twisted his fingers around. I didn't say, stop or anything.
So the next morning, what transpired?
I remember thinking that Johnny would change his mind, and it would be, I thought it would end differently. I kind of froze. I don't know how we went to bed that night. I don't know how I went to bed. I don't know how I slept. I don't know how we woke up. I don't remember having a conversation with him the next day. I don't remember talking to him about it or confronting him about it. I remember wanting it to be okay. I remember just wanting whatever fucking weird trip, whatever trip that was to end, you know, just to be over and for it to just go back to normal. And I remember my friends were out by the pool. Like there was a pool in the center of the trailer park, and I remember putting on my, just putting on my face and going back into this like crowd, and I remember seeing my friends by the pool thinking they were just having a great time, and no one knew what was, I felt so lonely, like no one knows everyone was just having a good time, like normal stuff. So I just smiled and made a joke about how trashed the trailer got, and we had to get the manager, who started off furious that Johnny had wrecked the thing. And then he had this like black mesh not tank top, it was like a meshy kind of shirt on. And I remember he came into the trailer and looked around and was like, whoa, what happened here? Whoa. And Johnny had an exchange with him. And I remember watching this man be so charmed. It was just a kind of a surreal experience. And, it just went away. That just got fixed. We walked out of the trailer at some point. My dog stepped on a bee. We went to the vet and went on with our, vacation. We actually went to another location after that, and then eventually went home and went about our...
I'm going to ask you to take a look. Michelle, can you bring up Defendant's Exhibit 176? In June 2013, how were you feeling about your relationship with Mr. Depp?
By June, I was so torn. I was so in love with this person. Because when it was good, it was so good. You've never felt love like that. At least that's how it felt. So much. I felt like he recognized me and I recognized him, and there was just something there that was the love of my life. And he was. He was. But he was also this other thing. He was also this other thing. And that other thing was awful. Awful thing that would come out and take over. And it was, you couldn't see the Johnny I loved underneath it. It was this other thing. And no one told him. No one was honest with him. No one, he'd pass out in his own vomit. He'd lose control of his body, he'd lose control, and everyone would clean up after him. I cleaned up after him. I mean, this man lost control of his bowels, and I cleaned up after him. His security cleaned up after him, changed his pants in front of me. He would pass out in his own sick. And then he'd walk around saying he didn't have a problem. Until he did. Until he couldn't support it anymore, and he'd get clean and he'd get sober, and then he was this thing again. This thing that made me feel so loved, that made me feel like my soulmate. As cheesy as that sounds, I just felt like he knew me. And I recognized something in him, either some part of my makeup and my background or something, that I just got it. And I loved him and understood him. It just got so scary, the other part of him. And in June, I wanted to leave him. I didn't want to leave him. I wanted to leave him. I wanted him to get better. And he expressed to me so many times when he was in that period of getting clean and sober, he would tell me, "You saved my life. Baby girl, you saved my life." Everyone else was saying that to me, and I believed it. You know, if everyone else was saying it, he was saying it. I thought, just like his other friends who had gotten clean and sober and stayed that way, his older friends, these rock stars that he hung out with that had like gotten clean and sober and they had 20, 30 years, something, you know, I thought, and Johnny told me he would be that person, that he was going to be that person, and I believed it. I had so much, I looked at that man twice my age, you know, I was 25, looking at this man twice my age, and I saw hope and like promise. I had so much hope. You know, the whole thing, kids and growing old together, sort of hope. If it was just for this one thing that he could do, which would save his life, which would be to get clean and sober. And I believed it. And I wrote this letter to myself, among many letters to myself.
Objection,
because I
hearsay.
thought,
All she did was refer to that she wrote it. She isn't saying what she said.
I'll overrule for that.
Thank
point,
you.
Okay.
I wrote that letter because I thought it would be read to him. I could read it to him. I could say it to him in intervention, you know, in help. And he would later thank me for, as he used to thank me all the time for saving his life.
Did there come a time later in June that you finally met Johnny's kids?
Yeah, I finally met them in the summer of 2013. I had been with Johnny for over a year, maybe like a year and a half at this point, is my best guess. And I was dying to meet them, you know, dying to get to know these kids. I felt like I knew them already. I had his daughters, and Jack's, both of his kids' art on my fridge, and I had never even met them. You know, Johnny had brought them over one day and kindly given them to me, and I had them up on my fridge because I felt like I knew them, just how much he talked about them. And I finally got to meet them at the Lone Ranger premiere at Disneyland. Summer 2013.